Hello everyone. In this video, I will tell you about 10 large abandoned cities whose existence is hard to believe. Enjoy watching. On March 11, 2011, an earthquake of magnitude 9.1 occurred off the coast of Japan. This is the most powerful earthquake in the entire history of the country. It triggered the effect dominoes, and further events developed according to the worst-case scenario, according to National Geographic earthquake, caused 40-meter tsunami waves that hit the coast of Japan, which led to the complete destruction of the nuclear Fukushima power plant, which caused the most serious nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Moreover, Fukushima is the only nuclear accident, not counting Chernobyl, of the maximum level 7 on the international scale of nuclear events, the Japanese village of Nami-on. That fateful day got the most, except for serious damage, from the earthquake and tsunami. It was located near the power plant. All 20,000 people living in the city were evacuated, and for the next month, no one returned to search for missing people. And now, after more than 10 after the disaster, work on the restoration of the power plant and nearby cities begins with us. Located on the outskirts of the exclusion zone is slowly coming to life. As of 2020, the population of the village has increased from 0 to 1,200 people, but it will take a long time until all 20,000 residents will be able to move back. Yes, business urban areas are reopening, but access to more polluted areas in the west is still banned. Kvarcheli, or Gvorshau, was a small town on the Galitska River in the Republic of Abkhazia during World War I. Until the collapse of the Soviet Union, Korchal was a prosperous mining town with a population of 40,000 people. Today, it is a ghost town full of abandoned buildings, houses, and factories. What happened after the collapse of the USSR in Abkhazia? A brutal civil war broke out between those who were on the side of Georgia and those who were on the side of Russia. Georgian troops planted the city of Korchal, cutting it off from the rest of the country for 413 days. People survived, largely thanks to the air help of the Russian separatists, but it was impossible to resist indefinitely. People held out long enough. It took a long time for Georgia to lose control over Abkhazia, although the unrecognized state fell into complete decline, and Georgia refused to recognize it as a country. Some sources claim that about 5,000 people still live in crumbling apartments in this city, while others claim that the number of such people is several hundred. Here, all roads have fallen into disrepair, and most buildings are overgrown. One Turkish company tried to reopen the mines, but nothing came of it. Mostly tourists come to Korchal to photograph the ruins of the city that existed not so long ago. Over the past 30 years, China has experienced huge economic growth. Opportunities for new projects and ideas appeared, and anyone who had a plan could build anything they wanted. So in the period from 2011 to 2013, China used up more concrete than the United States in the period from 1900 to 1990. One of those projects was the metropolis of Khanbashi, a large-scale project in a rich coal mining in the city of Ordos in Inner Mongolia. The idea was simple: to build a luxury city with office buildings, museums, government centers, and residential complexes for the middle class, in which 1 million people and a city could settle. Built, but the only problem is almost no one moved. The Chinese ghost town hit the headlines of international newspapers, but according to Forbes, it was not justified at all. News about the ghost town appeared in 2009 when Jazeera and Time magazine published an article, but Khanbashi was built for only 6 years. This time is hardly enough to finish and populate the city. Designed for 1 million residents today, about 153,000 people live there. As of 2017, only 500 out of 40,000 apartments were still being sold. At one time, Centralia, Pennsylvania, was a thriving coal mining town with 14 active mines and 2,500 inhabitants. But coal production declined, and by 1960 the population had decreased to 1,000 people. Most of the mines were closed. The remaining thousands did not want to see their relatives. The city is dying. The last mine ignites in 1962 and is still burning in May 1962. The Central City Council hired 5 volunteer firefighters to clean up the city landfill, located in the open pit. As in the past, they burned garbage heaps, allowed them to burn for a while, and then extinguished them. But because of the fire that was not completely extinguished, the coal continued to burn. No one could imagine how bad everything was until in 1979, the owner of the gas station lowered his thermometer into underground gas tanks and discovered how bad its temperature was. It was 78 degrees, which was abnormal compared to 1981. A funnel appeared in the city that almost swallowed a 12-year-old child. Then in the 80s, the US government drew attention to the situation and organized the resettlement of residents. Until 2000, only 21 people remained in Centralia, and by 2022, only 5. At a distance of just over 13 km from the coast of the Japanese city of Nagasaki is the city of Hashima, also known as Gonkajima, which means cruiser island. From the end of the X6th century to the mid-70s of the last century, it was a thriving island on which underwater coal mining was conducted. But in 1974, the coal mines dried up and all 5,000 inhabitants left this place today. The island, it is considered a World Heritage Site, and Exion included it in the top 10 most creepy places on Earth in 2019 in the 2012 James Bond film 7 Coordinates. Skyfall Hashima plays a role. However, there is a dark history behind this island. Even before the Second World War, 60,000 Korean workers were forced to work in mines on it, along with 6 other objects. This happened around the time when Tokyo's colonial rule over the Korean peninsula was ending, so Kashima's proposal was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. Ambiguous in light of the controversial estimates of the historical past of this place, and although no one lives there today, you can book an excursion to the island from the city of Nagasaki. The boat trip will take about half an hour. Pitcher City in Oklahoma was a developing lead and zinc mining center, about 400 meters from Highway 66, which in the USA is called the Mother of Roads. The streets of the city were full of cars and children playing. People went to church and to basketball games. The economy flourished. They did not know that they breathe toxic air almost daily today. Pitcher is a ghost town, and Height is considered one of the most dangerous places in America. After a decade of lead and zinc mining, huge heaps of toxic waste called chat accumulated around the city. In 2008, a tornado of category EF4 on the Fujita scale swept over the city, destroying more than 100 houses and razing buildings on Central Street to the ground. In 2009, the Environmental Protection Agency declared the city unsuitable for lives and evacuated residents in less than 10 years. The population decreased 1,600 to 20 people who remained at home, fell into disrepair, schools were abandoned, and the only thing that still remained was a water-powered home pitcher. Even after the cessation of mining in the 1970s, the damage to the city was irreversible. Water contains a huge amount of lead, and because of soil erosion, sinkholes and collapses began to appear too often. The few people who remained call themselves Rats Chat No Tornado Toxic Whiz Tea, and sinkholes could displace them from their homes. As Captain Macmillan once said from the Call of Duty game, just look at 50,000 people lived in this city and now it's a ghost town. The ghost town he was talking about is Pripyat, and the officer was not mistaken. In the numbers, about 50,000 people were evacuated on April 27, 1986, the day After the Chernobyl disaster, the famous Ferris wheel that you often see in different pictures was part of an amusement park in Pripyat that was supposed to open in May 1986, 5 days after the Chernobyl accident. According to some rumors, the park was hastily opened on April 27 to distract residents from the disaster. Although these versions have not been confirmed, several Ukrainian companies offer Chernobyl excursions, and although you can make your own decisions, we would not advise doing this. Not only is it still preserved here a small level of radiation, and no one has inspected and repaired the building since 1986, someone can easily collapse and injure you, not to mention the fact that some people steal manhole covers. According to Rafael Marian Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the current level of radiation in Chernobyl does not pose a serious threat neither to workers nor to the environment, but it is better not to take risks. In 2014, the Turkish construction company Sarot Group decided that it had the best idea in history. It was going to build 732 almost identical Gothic-style houses near the Black Sea, about halfway between Istanbul and Ankara. But when the inflation rate in Turkey rose to 25, people stopped buying these miniature castles. Investors withdrew from the project in 2018. Sarot Group was forced to go bankrupt today. Many tiny castles are at different stages of readiness, completely abandoned by their developers. They invested in the project is $200 million, and there is not a penny left anymore. The houses were sold at a price of $400,000 to $500,000, and it seemed that they would be worth it. The villas provided a jacuzzi on each floor, and residents could install indoor elevators, swimming pools on the territory of the complex. There were even shopping, religious and entertainment venues. As some say, it all looks like 2,500 workers just threw their tools and left. And although most of the locks look beautiful on the outside, the interior decoration could not be finished. The company hoped to continue the project someday, so we will not call it completely abandoned yet. In the 1920s, Great Britain had a virtual monopoly on rubber. Ford and the Ford Motor Company wanted to be able to produce their own rubber, so they made a deal with the Brazilian government to buy 1 million hectares of land in the Amazon rainforest. Construction began in 1926, but it was greatly hampered by malaria and yellow fever. It was possible to get to this area only by river, because there were no roads connecting it with large cities and highways. But this did not stop Mr. Ford. Ford's goal was not only cheap rubber. He wanted to build a utopian city in this place based on the principles that he defended it all his life. He called it Fordland. But for the next 20 years, he had a hard time. In the 30th year, local workers rebelled. They were tired of American food and Ford's crazy rules. Tobacco, alcohol and football were banned, so they had to leave the village to have fun. Ford abandoned his idea in 1934, and Fordland was officially abandoned at the beginning of 2010. About 90 people lived there, and in 2017, the city experienced a revival. Today, about 3,000 people live in Fordland. A lot of people appeared and claimed their rights to abandoned houses. One of the most interesting facts about Furland is that Henry Ford himself never visited the city, for the construction of which he spent a lot of money. During its heyday, Varosha was a thriving resort town on the east coast of Cyprus. It was called the center of the art of intelligence and described like the French Riviera of Cyprus. But since 1974, after the Turkish invasion of the island, Cyprus turned into a ghost town. For many years there was a struggle between the Greek and Turkish population of Cyprus. Then a coup committed with the support of the Greeks prompted Turkey to invade, which established full control over the northern part of the island, which included, and stirring up, residents in a panic left the city, some of them still. Remember how during the invasion of the Turkish army, they left pans of food on the stove during their heyday? The the Crows lived 39,000 people in 2011. There were a little more than 200 of them. Left now, tourists come here to photograph the ruins, and it will take a long time before Vorush, again, rises to the same level with the Côte d'Azur. But it seems that the future of this city is bright. It is planned to reopen and repair. And that's it for me. If you liked this video, do not forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell for me. Your activity is the best reward. Thank you for your attention. See you soon for now.